Let's be real. When was the last time you put off going to the doctor? Maybe you said, I'm too busy, or it'll heal on its own. Or my personal favorite, I don't even know which doctor to go to. We've all been there. Booking a doctor's appointment can feel really daunting. But there's not really an excuse anymore, thanks to ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. Most bookings happen within 24 to 72 hours, and you can even sometimes get same-day visits. I know that if I ever needed this, it's exactly what I'd use. Stop putting off those doctor appointments and head to ZocDoc.com/Sportly to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Sportly. ZocDoc.com/Sportly.
Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. Good night, itchy eyes. Good night, sudden sneeze. Good night to your symptoms of allergies. Zysol is the allergy medicine you take before bed. It provides powerful relief while you rest your head. Not just all night, but all the next day. Zysol keeps working, keeping allergies at bay. And without those annoying symptoms disturbing your rest, you can wake up the next morning feeling your absolute best. Remember, be wise all. Take Zysol. At night.
Today is April 21st, 2025. It's Patriots' Day in New England. Every third Monday in April, states like Massachusetts, Maine, and Connecticut commemorate the first battles of the Revolutionary War, Lexington and Concord. It also happens to be the day of the Boston Marathon. Tens of thousands of runners are lacing up to take on one of the most famous marathons in the world. But why do so many dream of making it into the Boston Marathon? After more than 100 years of races, what kind of legacy has it built? In short, what makes the Boston Marathon so special? Hey everyone, it's Kavitha Davidson and welcome back to Sportly. Today, we're taking a look at the Boston Marathon, a race that it's not the biggest, it's not the fastest, but it is somehow still the most legendary. Why is that? Well, let's rewind. Let's start with what the Boston Marathon isn't. Again, it's not the biggest marathon. That title goes to New York City, just a few hundred miles away. And it's not the fastest. Berlin and Chicago are actually known for their record-breaking speeds. So what sets this race apart? For one, it's among the oldest. The very first Boston Marathon was held in 1897, over a century ago. And it wasn't a super flashy affair. There were only 15 competitors. In the end, John McDermott, an Irish-American athlete and printmaker, triumphed. He was no stranger to success. McDermott also won the first marathon held in the United States 6 months earlier. But his win in Boston was pretty different from what we would expect today. He actually walked much of the last few miles. His time was about an hour longer than the most recent Boston Marathon winners, which just shows you how far runners have come. After the success of the inaugural race, the Boston Marathon became an annual affair, and a lot has changed over those 100 plus years. For starters, the race used to be men only. You might remember the name Kathrine Switzer from our episode on the history of running a couple weeks back.
The world's most famous foot race even attracts a leggy lady, Kay Switzer of Syracuse.
She was the first woman to run the Boston Marathon back in 1967. Now, at the time, women weren't actually allowed to register for the marathon. But after 70 years of this race going on, Switzer decided she'd be the first to try, and she signed up under the alias KV Switzer, which to this day she swears wasn't done to mislead anyone. When the race manager tried to physically remove her from the course, she muscled her way out with the help of her boyfriend, and she finished the race. Here she is in an interview with ESPN.
I only heard him at the last moment because I heard leather shoes on the pavement, like that, and I turned and he grabbed me. He screamed at me, "Get the hell out of my race and give me those numbers," and went like this to pull off my bib numbers. And over here, my boyfriend didn't say a word, but cut in just like that and gave him incredible shoulder charge. And Arnie said, "Run like hell."
After years of campaigning from Switzer and others, the Boston Marathon finally allowed women to sign up starting in 1972. No coincidence, the year of Title IX. Switzer would go on to compete in multiple marathons, including the 2017 Boston Marathon on the 50th anniversary of her 1967 run.
Big smile on her face. She said she was just running just to soak it all in today. She hadn't set a time for herself. She had no expectations. But I tell you what, Lisa, some of the people who helped to organize the race about an hour and a half ago told me, we think she's coming in at 3:58. And didn't she come in almost to the minute? She kept a great pace. She made it.
So yes, the race has become more inclusive in a lot of ways. But in some other ways, it has also become more exclusive. Until the 1980s, the Boston Marathon was free to enter. There was no registration fee. Today, it costs $250 to enter the race. There was also no cash prize. The 2025 Boston Marathon will award more than $1 million in prize money to winners across the divisions. And there were no medals. Winners were presented with an olive branch wreath. Perhaps most importantly, there were also no qualifying times. Anyone could run. Even those who didn't register at all were allowed to run in the race. They were called bandits. The bandits would be held back until everyone who had a bib left the line, and then they'd be released and allowed to finish the course. But by 2015, bandits were prohibited as part of increased security measures following the Boston Marathon bombing. Safety concerns, crowds, costs, the race had simply gotten bigger than ever. Still, as it's modernized, the Boston Marathon has managed to hold on to something special. So how does it keep that spirit alive? Well, to answer that, imagine you're lacing up for today's world-class marathon. First things first, you've got to qualify. The most important factor is your marathon history and your speed. Qualifying times vary based on age and gender. For men, it typically falls somewhere between 3 to 4 hours and 50 minutes. For women and non-binary runners, it stretches a bit longer, usually between 3.5 to 5 hours and 20 minutes. Now, that might sound doable, but for most runners, not even close. According to Running USA, the average marathon finish time is 4 hours and 17 minutes for men, 4 hours and 43 minutes for women. Now, that's for all marathons. But in 2025, the qualifying times for the Boston Marathon are 3 hours for men, 3.5 hours for women. So that means that the average marathon runner needs to shave more than an hour off of their time to qualify for the Boston Marathon. Not only that, but hitting the qualifying time isn't always enough. Most years, like this year, the qualifying time is moved up by about 7 minutes because the marathon receives more qualified applications than the spots they can fill. That means that the slowest qualifiers, those who just make the cut, still might not make it into the race. And all of this is why those who compete in the Boston Marathon are considered among the most elite runners across these races. So what does all that add up to? Well, first, you need to train a lot. Now, of course, there's no magic number of miles or combination of training exercises that'll help you prepare, but needless to say, no matter what, it's a lot of work. One runner conducted his own survey of a few hundred Boston Marathon participants to get a sense of how people trained for the race. He found that almost all of them ran at least 1,000 miles in the year leading up to the event. And the vast majority were also doing speed work, essentially high-intensity training that pushes you to your limit to cut your times. So let's say you've done all of that. You've trained, you've met the required cutoff times, and you've registered, your bib in hand. Now it's time for the main event. What's it like to actually run in the Boston Marathon? You're at the starting line. You're about 25 miles west of Boston in a small town called Hopkinton. The gun goes off and the Boston Marathon has officially begun.
The runners in the first wave of this Patriots Day Boston Marathon are taking off. Spectators cheering them on, and they will be the entire 26.2 miles.
For an experienced marathon runner, the first few miles shouldn't be too bad. Some even say the beginning of the marathon feels too slow. In a massive event like this one, the crowd hasn't really spread out yet. You're running on other people's heels. You might even be tempted to pick up your speed, but remember, this is quite literally a marathon and not a sprint. Headed toward the halfway point, you're starting to get into a bit of a rhythm, and you're pacing yourself well. You're passing through some of the quieter stretches of the course. Well ahead of the bustle of the starting point, but you've got some time before reaching the booming Boston metro area. But what's that you hear? Is that screaming? You're not going crazy. You've officially made it to the Scream Tunnel, a quarter-mile stretch at the halfway point of the marathon where students at Wellesley, a prestigious women's college, line up and, well, scream. And they cheer and they whoop and they egg everybody on. And the energy is real. It's a much-needed pick-me-up right after entering the second most difficult half of the race. Some even go as far as to call it the best part of the whole experience. Here's one student in an interview with Channel 5 Boston.
I love the positivity. Like, you just cheer everybody on, give high fives. It's just such a positive atmosphere, and it's so fun.
Among the screams and the hollering, we might also hear some of the women asking for kisses. Yep, offering kisses to the runners is another part of the Scream Tunnel tradition. Here's a student named Laura.
Today I'm a senior and I got 50 kisses. You look at the one you want and you say, here, come here, I need a kiss. And they come give you a kiss.
Now, make sure you absorb all of that good energy because it's only an uphill battle from here, literally. At first, it might not be so bad. Maybe you're still riding high from all that encouragement. And hopefully you've kept the groove you found earlier on. But now you're headed into miles 20 and 21. And in Boston, that means one thing: Heartbreak Hill.
It's called Heartbreak Hill for a reason.
Oh my God, is it ever? I don't think our legs are going to make it to the top, but I'm going to give it all I got.
Steep, half-mile uphill at mile 20 of the Boston Marathon tests runners physically and mentally.
That was from CBS Boston. Heartbreak Hill is no joke. It follows a series of other hills that start around mile 16 that simply exhaust runners. These hills are known as the Newton Hills.
That's because by the time you get there, you have so many miles behind you, the hills feel particularly cruel.
Think of it this way. You're already at the point in the marathon where the difficulty cranks up a lot. Breathing becomes ragged, joints ache to the point that it's almost unbearable. Here's one runner in an interview with the Boston Globe.
Historically, mile 20 is where, for marathoners, is what they call hitting the wall. Yeah, when you get there and you're already starting to cramp up, it's kind of harder to start going up that hill.
But if you can get through that stretch, you do know that the worst is officially behind you. And you're finally headed into the heart of Boston for the final stretch of the marathon. Look around. You'll see a sea of tens of thousands of spectators lining the streets, providing the final boost to finish strong. Runners, some enthusiastic, some understandably lethargic, taking those coveted final steps. Volunteers literally helping some of them across the finish line.
If you're a runner, you make that last turn down toward the finish. You run those last 634 yards. You're in front of thousands of spectators who have nothing to do but scream for you. It is a thundering urban canyon, and you know that when you get down there, everybody's cheering for you. There's nothing else like it in the world of marathoning.
The energy is unlike anything else. So let's return to that question from the start. What makes the Boston Marathon so special? Well, as we already discussed, getting into the race is an accomplishment on its own. But that doesn't really capture the full picture. Here's Tom Grilk, the CEO of the Boston Athletic Association.
And in a way, that's what is most special about the Boston Marathon. It brings people together, no matter what they did. Runners, spectators, volunteers, whatever. They're all in it together. They help each other, and they feel really good about it. And that's where Boston Strong came from.
Boston Strong. You may have heard that phrase before. It became the rallying cry of the city after the terrorist attack at the 2013 marathon.
Good afternoon. I'm George Stephanopoulos in New York. We're interrupting your program because there have been 2 explosions today at the Boston Marathon. 2 explosions near the finish line just a short while ago. You see the scene right there. Explosions right by the finish line. The winners had passed several hours before. Some stragglers were coming by, but several people on the scene are said to be injured.
That horrific event set off a 3-day manhunt before the bombers were found. It captured global media attention. And it's probably when a lot of people first became truly aware of the Boston Marathon. But the truth is, the tragic events of 2013 do not define the race. The spirit that the city demonstrated in the weeks and months that followed, that's what the Boston Marathon is all about. The record $40 million raised for charity in the next year. The nearly 40,000 runners who signed up that year, many of whom gained entry through their charities. And the survivors who returned from the 2013 marathon to finish what they had started, even as many of them were dealing with lifelong injuries. To put it simply, the Boston Marathon has heart. And it's what makes it a popular choice for proposals, like when then Mayor Marty Walsh's chief of staff, Dan Coe, popped the question to his girlfriend at the finish line in 2015. And full disclosure, Dan's a friend of mine.
Here it is, Dan Coe, Mayor Marty Walsh's chief of staff, proposing to his girlfriend of 5 years, Amy Sennett. The mayor was holding the ring for them when they crossed the finish line. She said yes, both Dan and Amy running the Boston Marathon.
Once again, the Boston Marathon has heart, and hopefully you've noticed it throughout the course of this episode. Whether it's the screaming college students at Wellesley, the massive spectators who crowd the finish line, or the thousands of volunteers who tend to the injured and exhausted, the Boston Marathon is a lot more than the sum of its parts. Whether you're a runner or not, you feel the spirit of the Boston Marathon, and that's what makes it special. Even as other events rack up more participants or world records, the Boston Marathon reigns supreme in the hearts of the running community. So to all competitors, volunteers, and spectators out there today, have fun, stay hydrated, and from this New Yorker, stay Boston strong. Thanks for tuning into Sportly. Tune in next week and every week after for a new episode. And if you have thoughts or suggestions for a topic you'd like me to cover, I'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to email me at kavitha@immigrantlypod.com. And if typing a long email isn't your thing, record and attach a voice memo to your email. Who knows, I may read or play it in one of the upcoming episodes. Sportly is an Immigrantly media production. This episode was produced by Sadia Khan. written by Nicholas Black and me, Kavitha Davidson. Research and fact-checking by Suhasini Patni. Our sound designer and editor is Paroma Chakravarti. Our theme music was created by Simon Hutchinson. Other music by Epidemic Sound. Tune back in next week for more Sportly.